Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a una nueva entrevista de CriptoNoticias para nuestro canal de YouTube y nuestras redes sociales. Mi nombre es Fernando Clementín y hoy nos encontramos con un invitado muy especial para hablar sobre minería de Bitcoin, sobre la red en general y la tecnología que la rodea. Estamos hablando de Frank Holmes, quien es el presidente ejecutivo de Hive Digital y a quien tenemos en comunicación en este momento. Frank, good afternoon, and thank you for the time. It's a pleasure for us having you here.
It's great to be with you.
So, well, Frank, to start, what is Hive current position in the Bitcoin mining industry? Tell us a little bit about it.
So I'm a fund manager, and I have known for gold, and I've been in Argentina from day one, copper gold in the very southern part. I wrote books on gold. I have a following, and I was in that journey of trying to launch a Bitcoin ETF in 2017 and realized it wasn't going to happen. So I had the opportunity of co-founding a company called Hive Blockchain. And when you mine, you actually create a Genesis coin or a virgin coin. So you don't have a AML KYC problem that the SEC has said is why they've not approved an ETF in that space. Now, my JETS ETF, which is a New York Stock Exchange, it's also in Lima and Mexico City and London, England. And so after I launched that, I went to try to launch a Bitcoin ETF. That was going to happen. So I co-founded the launch of Hive, and it was mining Ethereum and Bitcoin, and it was the first. And it's been focused on only green energy. We source energy in Quebec, in New Brunswick, in Iceland, and in northern Sweden, 100 kilometers south of the Arctic Circle.
So, and tell us a little bit about the state of art of the industry right now. You had like a rough 2022 for miners in general, for Bitcoin miners, and now the market seems greener, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, if you stripped out all the depreciation, because all the auditors have different depreciation and non-cash charges, there's a anti crypto mining regulatory world we still live in. Even though it's so nice to see that BlackRock looks like they're going to get an ETF, it still is, you can see from the accounting boards, the way they've treated this. So with that, Hive, if you backed out all depreciation, non-cash charges, we are the most profitable of our peers. And it's because of just how we function. And we are focused on, like a gold royalty company, having the highest revenue per employee and the highest cash flow returns on invested capital. But we're innovators, and I love what we're doing in La Chute in Quebec, just north of Montreal. We have one building that's 30 megawatts of electricity, 40,000 square feet, heating a building from mining Bitcoin that's 5 times bigger, where they're making whirlpools. And now in northern Sweden, we have on the drawing boards to build 95,000 square foot greenhouse that will then provide all the tomatoes and cucumbers for the northern part of Sweden and Norway and Finland. So there'll be no import from Spain or Italy, no carbon footprint. So we're looking at heating hockey arenas in northern Sweden. The idea that you can take green energy and recycle it to something else is very exciting, that model, and we've been able to demonstrate it. So Hive likes being in that position, but we also try to hodl. We try to hold on for dear life for those green coins. We're also investing in ordinals, the development of ordinals, because it unleashes the creative element where the artists are coming in. For any industry to really flourish, you have to have the culture of art, like the Bored Apes Yacht Club demonstrated, that trade over $1.5 billion worth of NFTs of the bored 10,000 apes. That space isn't going away because there's so many great artists that all of a sudden it's going to go digital. And you got to think that you're Uberizing taxi cab business, democratizing. You're doing that to art galleries, because if you're Fernando, a great artist, you only get one, you go sell your piece for $10,000. The art dealer takes 5,000. You get 5,000. That's it. Now, if your art goes up to worth, now the next piece is worth 100,000, you're only going to get one trade. Where when it's digital, you get many trades. So it basically creates more of a democracy and a royalty for great artists. So I like the fact that they're using the Bitcoin network. And so we're investing in Lightning, we're investing in anything to build up the ecosystem.
We're going to talk about ordinals in a few minutes because I have something to ask you about that. But now that you mentioned renewable energy, how do you visualize for the future the use of these energies across the whole mining industry?
Well, we've seen this in Amsterdam where they take only 2 megawatts in special modular units and they heat a huge water tank that then heats 6 football fields, a greenhouse, 6 football fields,
Hmm.
all from only 2 megawatts. So the idea of re-engineering from liquid coolant, what we are doing in Montreal is almost like a radiator concept that you have in Canada to keep the houses warm in the winter. It's steam, and here we're using a liquid that then turns around in like a radiator, but it heats not water, but it heats a much bigger building. These are great ideas for engineering. We're going to be able to dry rice. So if you're a big rice farmer, you have to go to a co-op and the rice has to get dried. Well, they use natural gas. Well, we will turn around and be able to draw down the cost of that. So I'm so excited about these other ideas that can be applied with Bitcoin mining. Has so many benefits. Hive was also the first to balance the grid, and we've been doing that for 4 years now in northern Sweden, and it's worked out. Last year, when it was a horrible year, we made a lot of money in December by basically tooling down and giving our electricity and selling it back to the grid. So we understand these ideas of balancing the grid, recycling energy, and it makes you so much more productive.
Yeah, and despite of that you are telling us, there are still some organizations, such for example Greenpeace, that are protesting against the way Bitcoin mining develops its activity. Why do you think, or are they ignoring this kind of developments, or what do you think about their protests?
I think that the whole argument on gold and Bitcoin and actually art, Andy Warhol art, is that they're all decentralized assets. It's decentralized. And what you see are organizations like the World Economic Forum, which is all about centralization. And they started with this FUD, spreading false and uncertainty and doubt about how much electricity was being used to mine Bitcoin. That was 2% of all the world energy. And it's just not true. Hive is 1% of the world. So there's no way if you multiply that times 99, or is it going to be 2% of the world's electricity consumption? So you saw organizations which are all about centrally controlling everything in our lives. And it's almost like the concern now with the United Nations, for controlling all healthcare for the world. This idea of the centralization comes from people funding Greenpeace. So it was out that the co-founders of Ripple funded Greenpeace to go and attack Bitcoin mining. And there was lots of FUD that came out of this, and it hasn't really gotten away. And the mining community, we publish on a regular basis. Michael Saylor has done a phenomenal job of stewardship and leadership, where the mining council puts all their data in, and we go and show that it's like 15 basis points of electricity consumption, less than gold mining, less than banks, less than central banks. So it's greatly we have to deal with the FUD. We have to educate people. Hive has gone ahead and done it in Spanish and in English and in Swedish and in French, and taken a 30-minute down to a 3-minute video of showing you that the ecosystem of Bitcoin miners are very frugal and very, very cost conscientious about the waste of energy. And we are not this huge number, and we aren't using coal. Maybe the problem was in Kazakhstan, but that's not what's taking place in America and Canada and other places. So it's one of those educational information battles that we have to all live with.
Indeed. And actually, the Bitcoin network has improved, has grown its hash rate practically constantly since 2021. Where do you think that geographically the Bitcoin mining industry is moving?
Well, I think that banks, we found that was only because of a lawsuit that it was discovered that JP Morgan was mining Ethereum through Amazon. So
Mhm.
we saw the difficulty surging in Ethereum, and we couldn't understand. We knew that there were 30 million kids with their computers going to sleep, and their gaming chips were able to mine in two Ethereum a year. But I wouldn't be surprised that some of these central banks are aggressively trying to, and they don't have to make disclosure, uh, mining Bitcoin for their own book of business. That's what my suspicion is, or it's JP Morgan Bank, and they're not disclosing where they're doing this mining.
Mhm. But for example, you as a Hive blockchain, Hive Digital, are moving to another countries, have facilities in many countries. And there are countries in, for example, in Latin America and South America with very cheap electricity and
Like Venezuela.
yeah, and Paraguay. And which do you think that their paper is in this Bitcoin mining industry map?
Well, anything to do with Venezuela for me is centralist controlled by either China or Russia, that country. And now they're infiltrating into neighboring countries like Colombia. And I know, in speaking to the CEO of one of the mining, like one of the big mining ASIC miners, manufacturers, that they sell a lot of these older machines very inexpensively into Venezuela. So it's a way for the government to be able to get US dollars or euros. I'm sure because of that, it's probably controlled by the military in Venezuela. So it's sad, but it's what it is. Whereas China doesn't want any crypto mining, is what they say. I don't, totally trust that, and I believe that Russia is also has a big mining footprint, and that's probably for these governments to be able to diversify their foreign currencies.
Mhm. Other companies, for example, like Bitfarms, are investing in Paraguay, Argentina, with big farms for Bitcoin mining. Do you consider those countries? Of course, I don't know if you can
Uh,
know so much, but
well, when you go to Latin America, it's not just what you know; it's also who you know. And I think that the Bitfarm the genesis of the creation of that came out of Argentines, and
Mhm.
I think that the co-founders there have a wonderful network in the surrounding countries, and they're first class people. They're straight first class. I have the greatest respect for Bitfarms, their management team, both in Canada and in Argentina. So they're smart. Would we look to go there? We would have to have a strategic partner, because you have to have someone that knows the lay of the land and how to navigate through many of these issues. But I'm not afraid of it, because I've been investing in Latin America in the gold business and the oil and gas business for a long time, for 34 years. And Canada is a dominant place for mining, not just crypto, but gold mining and silver mining. It has the most public companies listed in Canada, that all their assets are in Central or South America. So I, on a regular basis, travel throughout that region. And so I think when an opportunity opens up and we have a strategic partner, yes, we would explore that right away.
Great. Let's move to development. You mentioned today earlier Lightning Network. Which space have a Lightning within a Hive strategy or development project?
But what happened, if you see, Ethereum exploded because it had so many developers and coders working on it, and they were getting funding from various places, and people did it out of interest. There's 30,000 ecosystem of coders around the world, and Bitcoin doesn't have that and hasn't had that. So what you're seeing now, when I look at how secure and strong the Bitcoin ecosystem is in the network, it's attracting, and ordinals is a revolution of attracting coders. So when you see fund managers coming out and raising $30 million, and they're going to buy 100 deals, 50 are going to be in people, artists behind the ordinal market. They want 300,000 per person, 50 deals in the ordinal world, and 50 in the lightning. That means they're hiring and supporting financially all these coders, and that means they'll deploy a lot of people in Latin America, because there's some brilliant minds in Latin America. When you go to like Colombia, like Medellin has this whole complete crypto ecosystem, and the same thing in Argentina. Well, now there's going to be funding, not just for Ethereum. Is going to be what was in the past. It's now going over to this network, and I think that that makes the adoption of Bitcoin even greater and more important.
Mhm. And that adoption is more viable through Lightning, for example?
I think it's both. You know, Hive has made investments in the Lightning Network, and Hive has made investments in a company called Matador Gold.
Mhm.
And Matador Gold is NFT art, and behind it will be iterative AI that will make 1,000 designs. Say simple, a gold bunny. So not Bad Bunny singing, but Gold Bunny. And it will have 1,000 different pieces using AI and codified, and behind it will be 1 gram of gold. So 1 kilo of gold is 1,000 grams of gold, and behind that will be 1,000 ordinals, which will have this art. So we're trying to invest that way to see the ecosystem develop and explode on the upside.
Mhm. Now that we are talking about Ordinals protocol, of course, I think you are in favor of the protocol and its development. But what do you think about the Bitcoin users as a financial network having to pay higher fees uh, because Ordinals is using the network to store or to save information, like you said, art and other types of tokens. Uh, what do you think of that? Because
It, it,
there's
it
been a
goes,
lot of discussion around it.
well, you get the gold, but for me, the crypto Bitcoin fanatics are like a lot the gold bug fanatics. They really just don't like centralized government, and they really don't have that much Bitcoin, or I found they never had that much gold. They just really are anti-government. And so one has to separate them. If you want life and you want an ecosystem, you have to have minnows. And then with the minnows, you're going to turn around and attract bigger fish. And there's going to be tunas, and there's going to be dolphins, and there's going to be sharks, and then you're going to get whales. You need an ecosystem. The Bitcoin network just can't be evolving for a group of whales trading with each other. It's got to broaden out. So the idea that one Bitcoin is a 100 million Satoshis, well, do you know what they found is that, and I've said this all along, a green Bitcoin is worth more, and I've been offered more for our hodl position, and it's not much more, but it's more, and I believe it's going to become like art. Well, we have been offered for 200 satoshis, which is not worth 2 cents. All
Mhm.
right, in economics, $250,000. Why? Because those satoshis have special numbers at very special time in the timeline of Bitcoin. And so you're seeing this happen anytime there's a collector's item, that there's a limited supply and there's a broader adoption. my support for the ordinal ecosystem, I don't know who's going to win. I don't know who's going to win the Lightning Network, but I do know that when you apply the brain power of all these developers to the network, they're going to create faster ways to trade them. It creates, after all Bitcoin's mined, it creates a very secure network, which will be able to move things around inexpensively for the system.
Yeah, it's like we are seeing the arisement of a new economic system within an existent economic system that was Bitcoin,
Yes,
isn't it?
nicely put. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you.
Okay, so my last question, Frank, would be, what do we have to pay attention in the following years? What's your vision about it?
I think the biggest challenge is going to be how we manage the halving. Hive is so reluctantly sold some of its Bitcoin, not to pay electrical bills, but to buy better, more energy efficient machines. You're going to have the newest, most efficient machines to deal with the halving. And Bitcoin's going to have to be over $60,000 to be able to do that. And if you have inefficient machines, Bitcoin would have to be 100,000 if you take a look at that. So I think that that's the biggest challenge. Hive has a roadmap to double its exahash, to go from 3.3 to over 6 in the next 6 months. But what's been very exciting for us is that 3 years ago we started investing in AI, because we learned a lot about GPU chips
Yeah,
and GPU chips. You know what happened earlier this year when Bitcoin started to take off? The smaller coins that are proof of work coins, we were making more money mining them and converting to Bitcoin than we were with S19 Pros mining Bitcoin. They were more profitable. That allowed us to buy new ASIC mining equipment, so to upgrade our system. And so for us, that's what we are focused on, upgrading and getting all those NVIDIA chips. We bought 38,000 of these high performing NVIDIA chips to mine Ethereum, but they could also do AI. And we were slowly building AI, and unexpectedly it explodes GPT chat. Well,
yeah.
ChatGPT is all of a sudden put the demand on it, and we took up 2% of our NVIDIA chips, and we had to get special servers. So the slowdown has been getting these servers. So we have 400 these chips working, and we made $250,000 in the first quarter of this year from them. So if you scale that, it has a potential to do 100 million in revenue with huge gross margins, much higher than Bitcoin mining. But we believe that other avenues will grow, so we'll be able to deploy and take our exahash from 6 to 12. But we're not going to borrow at the bank like many of our peers did to buy machines. We're not going to have big financings. We're the most efficient miner. If you look at the data by Anthony Power, or you look at hash rate index by Luxor Group, we have the least amount of dilution. We have the lowest G&A. We have 20 key employees, and we did 6 million in revenue per employee. Goldman Sachs is $1 million. So we run a very efficient, and we see this opportunity that it could be the blue sky potential is the same based on Bitcoin today and the difficulty today. They would have almost equal in revenue in a year from now, but we would be making much more profit from the AI business, and it consumes very little electricity compared to Bitcoin mining. I mean, very little. So from that end, we changed our name from just Hive Blockchain Technology to Hive Digital, to better define how we're positioned in Web3 for all these other opportunities like Matador Gold and the Lightning Network and Ordinals, and building out the AI where we can mine these other smaller coins, convert to Bitcoin, and at the same time provide and sell the service. And it's all done B2B. We don't have direct customers, but GPT chat has changed all of that, so we can make much more per hour. Classic would be like this. We are making 15 cents per hour per ASIC chip, but with those NVIDIA chips, it's $1.50. an hour. All right, so we're
10
talking about
times more.
10 times greater unit per hour, which
Yeah.
is like when we were mining Ethereum, which then allowed us to go and buy all those ASIC chips.
So let me ask you one more question. Uh, you see potential as a company in EI, and what about the users? Are they going to benefit as well? Or, for example, the retail Bitcoin miners, which is left for them in all this development that is taking place so fast, apart from that?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I don't understand the question. You're asking the trade-off between what?
No, no, no. You say that EIs is gonna have a big space like the Bitcoin mining
Yeah,
had in the recent years, but you are talking about Hive as a company, as a but
right.
for the users,
Well,
which
for the shareholder, our
yeah,
duty, our fiduciary duty, the shareholders, is to generate the highest cash flow return on invested capital. That's what we focus on, and we have done that.
mhm.
If you backed out all of our peers' depreciation and you just looked at revenue and cash flow, we're number one by a wide margin because everyone has different depreciation and non-cash charges. And so when you look at that as pure business, is because we're focused on cash flow return on invested capital. The AI is part of the great digital transformation. Where it's going to go, how fast it's going to go, I have no idea. I just know having these independent, decentralized data centers are becoming very, very valuable. We're the first to go and create and buy our own data centers and build our own data centers. Then we saw Riot come into Texas and they bought from the German company their data centers and built that. This idea of the value of decentralized data centers, I think are a long-term important asset on the balance sheet of Hive. So what motivates us is this cash flow return on invested capital to hold as much Bitcoin as we can because we believe it trades substantially higher as the adoption grows worldwide.
Okay, great, great. We are really looking forward into that future that so brilliant that you're talking about.
Thank you, my friend.
Frank, it was really nice to have you here, and thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you, Fernando.
A nuestros queridos seguidores de CriptoNoticias, si les gustó el video, ya saben, se pueden suscribir a nuestro canal y dejarnos un me gusta o cualquier comentario. Y nos encontraremos en la próxima ocasión para seguir hablando de Bitcoin y tecnología. Hasta la próxima, gracias.
Ciao.